afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Fiesel, and I'm your host of The Edge. You can find us on the radio station, and it's icradio.media. You can also find us on television, channel 182, which is local to North Alabama. You can also find us worldwide. We're on Abundant TV, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire, and we definitely appreciate you listening. I know you could be doing anything else, but you're watching us right now, and you've got to really listen to this, okay? I have with me Chuck and Mary Lynn Bailey, and they are with Alabama Fair Tax. And so a lot of talk about that. Kevin McCarthy has made mention actually several times, but now there are some things we really, really need to know before. Well, what say you about this? What's going to happen? What do you think will materialize out of this?
Well, let's start off by just telling everybody that maybe some people don't know what it's all about. Mm-hmm. This bill, the Fair Tax Act of 2023, that Kevin McCarthy and his group, Kevin McCarthy got beat up over until he said he'd do it. It's called the Fair Tax Act, and we lovingly call it the Fair Tax. Uh-huh. And it's a comprehensive proposal that replaces all federal income tax and payroll taxes with an integrated approach, including a progressive national retail sales tax. A rebate to ensure no American pays federal taxes on spending up to poverty level. A dollar-for-dollar revenue replacement. We're going to replace every income tax dollar with a fair tax dollar, and the fair tax dollar is going to be worth more. And spending up to the poverty level, like I said, and through companion legislation within 7 years, the 16th Amendment has to be repealed, or this bill dies, it sunsets and goes back to whatever they can conjure up at the time, because the income tax will be gone by then. So it's all good. It started out being nonpartisan legislation, and it still is from in the sense that this is not a Republican or a Democrat bill or an independent bill. This is an everybody bill, because everybody has to pay income taxes one way or another. And it abolishes all federal, personal, gift, estate, capital gains, alternative minimum, Social Security, Medicare, and self-employment and corporate taxes, and replaces it with one simple, visible federal retail sales tax collected by existing sales tax authorities. And that pretty much covers everything most people ask a question about. But then they start thinking, they say, whoa, how are we going to pay for roads? Well, you just got a bank going here. We're going to put the money in the bank, and they're going to get money out of the bank to fix the roads just like they do now, because the income tax, they just put money in the bank and we go to that bank and go pay the appropriations. So this is only for about the taxes. Now, as far as what's going on in the House, bless those guys that held off to the last minute, because they got a lot of things started that would not have been started had he just gone on his merry way to become Speaker of the House. They kind of forced the issue, and things like the fair tax will be looked at. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that when they vote on the fair tax this time that it's going to pass and it's going to go through the Senate and the president's going to sign it, because that probably won't happen. But what's going to happen, there's going to be an up and down vote in the House, and that'll either be for or against. And even if it's against, we're going to get all kinds of messaging out of it, because a lot of people are going to learn more about the fair tax than everyone.
Free advertising.
It's free advertising at our expense, because we pay taxes to those guys to do their job. Mm-hmm. But the way I see it, it could pass in the House, but if it doesn't, we're still going to get the free advertisement. If it passes in the House and goes to the Senate, I don't think there's a chance in whatever that it'll get through there. And Biden has already said he will not sign it, so it would have to go into the Senate and over 2/3 of a vote for it, or it never make it through the president's office. So that's kind of where we stand.
One thing we will find out about from the vote is not only will we get the free advertising, but we'll know who's for it and who's against it, and we will know names, and that's important, because we have a lot of people who say, "Well, I really like it," but when it comes time to co-sponsor, we can't find them. So that way we'll know.
Or when it comes time for them to stand up and say, "I'm for the fair tax. Here's what it is, and here's why I'm for it," they kind of forget that they signed the fair tax pledge kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's going to take the guesswork out of for the rest of us. But I will say this. Okay, so let's just say it doesn't happen this time. And let's just dream and pretend somebody like a Donald Trump is president of the United States.
Mhm.
How do you think Donald Trump would respond to this?
He's a businessman. I can't imagine that if that passes the House and the Senate, that he wouldn't have signed it the first day. It just makes sense. It makes sense for the country. Actually, I just wrote a rebuttal to a video, that YouTube video, that somebody made up their own idea of what the bill is without having any idea of what it was.
Which is typical. That's the way they reviewed it in the 2005 Tax Commission. They just made up their own bill and said, "Hey, it's fair tax costs too much."
Yeah.
Idiots.
But one thing that I had forgotten to put, I actually went back and put it, was it is the biggest transfer of power from the federal government to the American people since the American Revolution.
And that's
It's
the truth.
that big, and it's important. It's just one of those things. If you believe in freedom, you've got to believe in the fair tax.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely correct on that, because right now people have been in groups and they've listened, and the people who've went to the groups get it. I got it the first time when you guys came to Fort Payne that day or that evening. I was like, okay, so what do we do? How do we get this going? I mean, I get it. And so I think more business people need to listen to it, but not just business people. I'm talking about the person who doesn't own a business. My goodness. Aren't you tired? I'm going to talk to some folks just for a minute. Aren't you tired of your paycheck being taken away from you bit by bit by bit? And that's not all of it. What you pay for when you buy something, you're paying much more than you realize. Is there any kind of an estimate, a guesstimate out there as to what the individual actually pays in taxes?
I don't think there's any way to know.
No way to tell, because, well, we can talk about embedded taxes and all that, but everything you buy has an embedded income tax or a corporate tax or tax compliance costs that businesses and corporations have to pay to get the money to the government. And that's all rolled up in the price of all the goods and services that you purchase. And so one does not know how much tax they're paying unless they can trace it through with the product they're buying. Like, for instance, leather. Several years back, it was found that leather was about 16%. The cost was due to income taxes and Social Security, Medicare, and all that kind of stuff that was paid on it for the labor. All the labor costs increase the amount of the price, and so you're not getting product. You're paying for that guy's labor costs. So that's the main thing. So you can never know what you're paying, because all that stuff's there, because you got leather seats on a car, and the car, it's the tax you pay on that is much higher. So
yeah, I suppose it's possible if you wanted to spend all of your life figuring it out. But when you pay your income tax, that's just a small portion. What you're also paying the income taxes of everybody who contributed to the cost of whatever you're buying. So, it's called the cost of doing business, and I can't blame them for those people for adding it in there. When for instance, with bread, when you buy the wheat from the farmer had to pay income tax, Social Security, Medicare, an accountant probably, and all of those costs went into the cost of growing the wheat. And then when the miller takes the wheat and grinds it up, he has people working for him. He has to pay employers' taxes and so on, and all of those add up.
You got to transfer the flour to the baker, and then the baker has to transfer all of that around to his bread around to the.
And you got the driver and
all of these places. You got little bits of labor costs rolling up in the price, and it's worthless. It's useless. There's no value added to that. It's just picking off so that the government has money to blow on what they blow it on.
So, but with the fair tax, the tax is collected at retail, and when the final product goes to the consumer, that's when you pay the tax. It's in the price of the item.
Right.
So,
I was just talking to a guy today about this particular thing, and it was from the point of view of, okay, so you get paid in dollars. and on the average, 10% of that dollar goes to income tax on the average across everybody. And so this is kind of a backdoor way of answering your question. And so you think, oh man, that's I only got 90% of that dollar that I can buy anything with. But no, wait a minute. The most regressive tax of all is the Social Security Medicare, which is 15.3%, because you pay your portion and you also pay the employer's portion, because you wouldn't be working for him and he wouldn't be paying that unless you're paying for it. So you actually pay that amount. So you're already up to 25.3% taken out of your check each time you get a check. So that leaves you $74.74 out of every dollar to go buy stuff with. So you're starting off behind the 8 ball, and then you got to pay a state tax, a sales tax. You're getting further and further behind the 8 ball. Whereas with this system, when you go to buy something, your dollar is worth the dollar you made, because there are no taxes, no income taxes taken out of that dollar. And so that may be a better way to explain it.
And that's a great way to explain that. I have some questions. Phil ran your show again. It was like a rerun last week. So I have some questions that have been sent on to. Yeah, we're really pushing this fair tax. I'm telling you.
We really like the questions because the questions tell us what you're concerned with, not, what we know, what we have, what we like about the fair tax and what sold it for us. But when other people tell us what they want to know, that's a good thing.
Well, one of them was about the prebate. And then I've got a question about that too, because I didn't hear any mention of a prebate from McCarthy. Did I miss something?
It's written in the bill. So that if he votes on that bill, the prebate will be in there.
It would be, I would question whether Kevin McCarthy actually knows what's in the bill.
I would question that.
Okay, that's most of the questions. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be rude about this. I'm trying to smooth this over as easy as I'm not going to tell you what some people said.
Yeah.
No.
So does he really understand it? And because here's the way it is. Okay. Let's say I make widgets. I make widgets. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I can explain it to a prospective client better than anybody else can, because I make them. I know the ins and the outs of it, and I know I know how to answer the question. You guys need to be up there explaining this, just to make sure people understand it.
Well, we have somebody up there who does understand it, but Kevin McCarthy doesn't have to know what's in the bill in order to vote for it. If you remember, Nancy Pelosi said you have to pass the bill before you can find out what's in it.
Don't make me ill.
But the thing is, this omnibus bill, I think it was like 4,900 pages, and it was presented in the morning and they voted on it in the afternoon. They don't know what's in any of the bills that they pass. So,
and this bill, it's just bad on him if he doesn't know what's in it, because this bill is 132 pages.
Yeah,
it's that double space is about 4 or 5 words per line, and there are about 25 lines per page. There's not much in there, but it changes the whole world as far as we're concerned.
And the income tax code has changed every day, a couple of times a day.
Underwear.
Yeah, there was a columnist, Mike Adams. I don't know if you remember him or not. He was a professor in North Carolina, actually. And I believe that's right.
Yes.
But anyway, he wrote a column in the newspaper, and he, after the Reagan tax cut, he wrote, if you change your underwear twice a day, that's half as much as the federal government changes the tax code every day.
Remember they gave us a flattened income tax back in 1986. And within and there were three brackets, so that that was pretty good. The top rate came down from 70% to 28%, and then there were 2 more percents in there lower than that. And within about 2 or 3 years, there were 5, and then a couple of years later, there were 7 brackets, and so you're back to where we are now. And the thing's been changed at least over 20,000 times since then, like Mary was talking about.
Yeah, and the income tax in 1913 was a flat tax, and it was I think the tax, it was 3%. Is it 1%? No,
1%, $3,000.
Yeah, above $3,000, you had to pay 1%, and then over the years, it just grew.
Oh, and the killer is it was capped at $500K. And,
Mhm.
500K in 1913, that was big bucks. As a matter of fact, the $3,000 in today's dollars is like $80,000 a year. So people were paying 1% on $80,000 up to 500,000, and
And,
that was it.
and the size of the government was 3% as opposed to 22% or 23%, maybe even bigger than that
Yeah.
now. But it
Yeah.
stayed at about 22% for a long
Well,
time.
the other thing too is just a couple of years after it was the income tax was instituted. Remember, we had that war in 1970, that World War One thing came along, and so they had to pay for it. And next thing you know, the tax rate was up 95% or something like that to pay for the war. And then it dipped down over the years, and it was back up to 94% at the end of the second war. And then Kennedy brought it down to 70% during his time, and then Reagan brought it down to 28% in his time. So that's the travel that income tax has taken over the last 100+ years.
Yeah, those percentages are a little misleading though, because
That's the marginal rate. So
yeah, because the 90%
had,
probably weren't very many people, if any, that
they
actually.
they learned about loopholes at that point in
Yeah,
time. So
so they were. Yeah.
There have
So
been loopholes forever. I think probably beginning with Adam and Eve. No deal about that. Some of the questions that were asked too were about the percentage rate. I know that there is a particular percentage. Could
yeah,
that rate ever go up?
it
yes.
could go up if you let your guard down and let those guys vote it up, because this bill is set up so that there are no exemptions. There are
Mhm.
no exemptions. So the only way that they can change this is by law would be to increase or decrease the rate. Now, the guy that goes up and stands in front of the crowd and says, "I'm going to reduce that fair tax rate by 1%," he'd win every time.
Well,
But the guy that says, "I'm going to increase it up to 25%," he'd get beat up.
yeah, the impetus would be to lower it because people will
Yeah.
actually know how much they're paying. And right now, like we discussed earlier, nobody knows how much they're paying in taxes. In fact, the you know the what they use now to raise taxes, they say we're not going to raise taxes on you. We're just going to raise taxes on the people behind that tree. Well, what they do is come and plant trees in front of everybody. So
Yeah.
everybody's behind the tree eventually, and not just eventually, very shortly after the tax is raised. And it generally goes after the middle class
They're the
because,
only ones that can pay it.
well, the middle class is where the biggest pot of money is. Now, there are billionaires in this country, but if you took every penny that they made, and they'd only do it, that would only happen for 1 year because there would be no impetus
No,
to work after
they'd
that.
be out after the first couple of months,
No, I'm
because
just
that's
saying
as
that
long as it
those
would last.
people who pay 100% would not be paying 100% the next year. They would.
They'd be doing something else
It would only run
for
the
the
government for about a month or so.
yeah.
So that
Every penny that a billionaire makes in the United States would only run the government for a month or two if they
Mhm.
got their hands on it.
That's
right,
why they go after the middle class.
exactly. And and they say too that these 87,000 new IRS agents, they're going to go after the upper income. That's not true.
Bald-faced lie.
Yeah, because right now the upper income, they have lawyers and accountants, and if they make they don't make mistakes for one thing. They also have ways to get around paying the taxes, like taking their money as a what's this as a
Capital gains.
capital gains. Thank you. Anyway, they would take capital gains, which is taxed at a lower rate. That's how. Remember John? Oh gosh, what's his name? The one guy who ran for president, and his wife was. Well, anyway, he made all of his.
Edwards.
Catch
John
that man.
Edwards. Thank you, John Edwards. He was a millionaire. Made his money from capital gains because he never took a salary. Salaries are taxed at a different rate.
Mhm.
With fair tax, there's only one rate. So if you raise that rate, you're raising it across the board.
Everybody
You're not planting
pays
any trees in front of people.
Mhm.
So
Second part of going with the fair tax is, and the fact that it's a single rate, is that unless human nature changes, people are going to start. This has got to be printed out on the receipt for everything you buy according to the law, and people are going to start looking down and saying, "Whoa, holy mackerel! I bought this $100 item. It's got $23 tax on it. What the heck are they doing with that $23?" And then they're going to start questioning why are you spending my money? What are you spending my money on, and why is it so much? And that'll help get the guys running on. I'm going to reduce this fair tax rate.
Yeah, and 23% sounds like a lot of money, but right now the lowest income tax rate is it 10% or 15% now?
10, I think it's 10.
10. Okay, you're paying 10% income tax. You're
That
paying
was the thing
Social
I said a while
Security
ago.
and Medicare on your first dollar, and also you Medicare, well, the Social Security and Medicare averaged about 16%. So you add 16% to 10%. That's 26%. You're already paying at a lower rate.
That was 25.3% I talked about first out. So.
Yeah, and the other thing is too, Social Security and Medicare are scheduled to go bankrupt within the next 10 to 15 years. I think it's 10 years for Medicare and 15. These numbers could be wrong, but they're very close. Social Security within 15 years, and with the fair tax, 35% of every penny, every dollar that's collected goes to pay for Social Security and Medicare. It's a fixed sum. Whereas right now, it's only people who are working, and that's if Congress doesn't mess with the money. Like if you'll remember, at one point only the employer was paying the Social Security.
And another way to say that is 8% of the 23 cents is set aside for Social Security and Medicare, because that's the same percentage that the income tax puts in there now, except everybody that pays this tax is going to be paying for my Social Security and Medicare. So we're talking about 330 million Americans plus about 50 million tourists plus about 100 million folks that are just coming in and out of this country for whatever. When they buy stuff here, they're going to pay this tax.
Your drug dealers.
Huh?
Yeah.
Your drug dealers and your prostitutes. Well, everybody that's not paying tax now, people are being paid under the table.
Right.
There's a lot of that.
Right. But those people actually buy food, they buy groceries, and buy cars and so on. So they will pay the tax then. Anytime they spend money at Walmart or Lowe's, Amazon, they will pay the tax.
Let's throw out some big numbers now. Right now, it costs over $500 billion to collect whatever amount of income tax that they collect. And we did a study to show this. There's over $690 billion evaded, talking about the prostitutes and the pimps and the drug dealers, all those guys that they don't fill out income tax forms, y'all. They don't pay any income tax, so they'll get taxed by this. So you can see the kind of numbers that you're going to be bringing in by taxing everybody, rather than those guys sliding through the system throughout their lives at our expense. Because every time the tax is raised, we pay it and they don't.
And actually, and another thing too that I just actually thought of, it was an epiphany I had a couple of days ago. The state actually collects the money from the retailers in the state, and then they pass it on to the federal government. Can you imagine how that would improve states' rights if the states held on to their income, held on to their tax, and said, "Look, you do this to our state, and we're going to keep our money." So there are so many things. I keep thinking of good things now. There are going to be people out there who make up their own bill and call it the fair tax.
Which is not
and like I said with this video I just saw.
Yeah, one of the funny things is he says, and everybody's going to pay this consumption tax, and the guys that are buying these luxury jets, they're going to pay 50% tax on that thing. And I'm sitting there thinking, boy, you do not know what they're talking about. And so they would pay a guy buying say it's $50 million. The jet would say $50 million. The price tag would be $50 million, but the guy that's buying it would know that $11,500,000 of that is going to be this sales tax. Now, how is that guy getting away with anything? If he buys that under this new law, if he buys that jet, he's going to pay that tax, unless he's cheating somehow.
Well, if he buys
a used one, he won't have to pay.
If he buys the used jet, the tax has already been paid. It's already in the price.
Already rolled up in the old price of the jet.
Yeah. So, but the thing about it is, the people who have the money are the ones who spend it. If you don't have any money, if you only buy necessities, your necessities are not taxed, because because of the prebate.
The
And in
prebate.
fact, we got some of the new numbers, and a single person can spend up to $13,000.
$14,580.
It's more than I thought. $14,000 a month.
No.
What?
A year.
No, let me tell you.
Yeah, please, because
Let me tell you. The new
$1,400.
Poverty guidelines just came out from the Health and Human Services, and a single person is 14,580, and that means that a single person, like in the state of Alabama, they're worried about people having to pay grocery tax. A single person could buy up to $1,215 worth of groceries without having to pay a tax on it. That's the way the system works. The next dollar, when that person spends $1,216, that next dollar will have 23% tax in it, and the rest of them below that will have zero in it. So amortized over those numbers, he still is not paying much tax.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get up toward 500K to millions of dollars before you actually start approaching the 23% tax, because this is a positive, it's a progressive consumption tax, which is a good way to go.
Actually, you pay the 23% if you don't take the prebate, and that's a voluntary thing. You have to sign up for it. Well, I understand that, but so that's how you never. And if you take the prebate, you never actually reach 23% because it gets very close when you get out to about $800 million. But
getting back to your old algebra days, that value goes asymptotic to 23%. It never touches it.
Yeah, that's
but
with
always
the prebate.
It's getting closer and closer and closer, but you can get out to infinity and it still hasn't touched that 23%.
If you take the prebate. If you don't take the prebate,
which you don't have to.
Right. But if you don't take the
I
prebate,
would.
I'm taking it.
But if you don't take the prebate, you're still getting a deal because 23% is less than
what you're paying now.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So yeah,
I don't know why not. I just don't know. Guys, we've got to go into a commercial break already at the bottom of the hour. We'll be right back in just a few minutes. Y'all hang in there, okay?
All right.
Okay.
I'm Mike Lindell, and my employees and I want to thank each and every one of you for your continued support. With everything going on right now, your rest is so important. That's why we're having the biggest MyPillow sale ever. Not only are my bed pillows as low as $19.98, but you can get the best body pillows ever. Regular $89.98, now only $29.98. Take your rest on the go with our Roll and Go Anywhere MyPillows for only $14.98. And we have our new couch and accent pillows. They aren't just for looks. They have MyPillow's patented adjustable fill that gives you that amazing MyPillow comfort. In this economy, you get the best gifts ever for the best prices ever. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code and you get deep discounts on body, couch, bolster pillows, and so much more, including my original bed pillows for as low as $19.98. Please order now while quantities last.
The Hatter Cafe and Country Inn is nestled in the northeast corner of Alabama the Beautiful, in the delightful town of Mentone. We're located on top of scenic Lookout Mountain, near Little River and DeSoto State Park, and located only 5 minutes from shopping and restaurants. We welcome everyone through the door, and we're committed to outstanding service for all guests. At the Hatter Cafe and Country Inn, we invite people from all walks of life to come in and get away from it all. Enjoy the open spaces, treetop views, fresh, clean air, and experience Southern hospitality at its finest. We serve breakfast and lunch 8 to 2 Friday through Sunday through the winter months through March. To reserve a special event or to reserve that special getaway at the Country Inn, you can call us at 256-634-2018. Twin City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales look forward to serving you. And you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Fort Payne and Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by the locations in Fort Payne and Gadsden. We sincerely look forward to serving you. At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant. Let Rhonda at Rhonda's Elite Tax LLC take the burden off you for all your tax needs. I know because Rhonda has been taking care of my business since 2013. I feel Rhonda works for me because she knows the direct questions to ask to better benefit my unique business in order for me to get back the biggest refund possible. Rhonda is an ongoing student, and she knows tax laws are in a constant change every year. Call 256-281-9903 for an appointment to take the dread out of getting your taxes done. Rhonda is located at 11968 U.S. Highway 431 in Boaz. Again, that number is 256-281-9903. And let Rhonda's Elite Tax LLC champion your personal and business taxes. I love that commercial. That's a good one right there. And I'll have to take, my name is Donna Fiesel, by the way. I'm your host of The Edge. I have Chuck and Mary Lynn Bailey with me. Rhonda at Rhonda's Elite Tax Service has really been doing my taxes since 2013, since we moved back to Alabama, and she really does work for me. So I did ask her, we've mentioned this before on the show. So I said, Rhonda, have you heard of fair tax? She started actually smiling. I said, I can't believe you're smiling. I would think you would hate this. And she said, I want it to happen. She said, this is beginning to be so depressing. I have to tell somebody when they have to pay in, they've worked really hard and they got to pay in thousands of dollars, the IRS. She said, I want this to happen. And so my next question was, well, what would you do? I mean, you've been doing this for almost your entire lifetime. She used to work for her aunt, then started out on her own. Okay. And she said, are you kidding me? I can help people grow their businesses. I can be a cheerleader for a change. Right. And I guess she'd be a good one. She really, really would.
That's what we hear from CPAs and accountants, that they really don't like the income tax because, first of all, they're really driven during the first 3 or 4 months of the year. And well, actually more than that. Yeah. And they work day and night filling out those forms. And then they're responsible for those forms too.
We've had and do have CPAs that are in our organization. One of the nine folks on the board of directors for Americans for Fair Taxation is a CPA, and I think he's a professor in a University of Colorado. Maybe that's not right. He's in a firm out in Colorado that and he writes for Fair Tax, and he's also on Fair Tax Radio sometimes. So. He's all for it. No, I'm talking about Jade Walling.
Okay, and Steve Hayes is a tax lawyer.
No, he's a rehabilitated tax lawyer.
Well, okay.
There you go. I have a couple more questions for you. And this one is about, we are in so much debt in the United States. If something like this doesn't happen, I'm paraphrasing a few questions that I've asked. They're all asking the same thing. What's going to happen to the country if we don't do something like this?
The country is not going to climb out of this mess that we're in if we don't do something like this, because what this will do for us. It doesn't just take taxes out of your paycheck. It allows businesses to come to the U.S. and actually bring their manufacturing and everything to the U.S. because there won't be any income tax on corporations. When the naysayers for the Tax Cut and Jobs Act were going around talking about how bad that was and how it's costing everybody extra money and all that, they were just lying. But the other part of that is that the top rate was dropped down on corporations was dropped down to 15.5% the first year. And then the second year it went to 21%. And I think that's where it still is. When it dropped down to 15.5%, companies like Apple brought a whole boatloads of money back home. They brought $245 billion back to the United States. And they paid $38 billion in taxes on that just to not have to pay the 39% of whatever it was. And they started spending money in the U.S. to actually build facilities to make their product. Now, when the new president came along and started negating a lot of those things, the regulations and everything that the Trump administration had put in place, a lot of those companies are starting to leave the country again, and they're going to, because when you mess around with their tax system, and you're messing with their profit margin, and so they're going to go somewhere where it doesn't cost them a whole bunch of money in taxes to build their product.
Of course.
So they're also touting this chips bill that they just put into place, how it's going to bring chips back, chips manufacturing. Yeah, it's going to cost us a blue Sunday worth of money to do that too, because you got to give them incentives to do that. Whereas if you didn't have taxes, that would be the incentive for the income taxes. That would be the incentive for them to bring their manufacturing back to the States. And that's going to bring much better jobs, much higher paying jobs. And it's going to bring subcontractors that feed those contractor businesses. The whole thing just works as a positive to build the economy. And the worst study for this was some group of people that didn't like the fair tax. And they came up with, yeah, it's going to grow the economy by 3 or 4%. But then the best case, it grew the economy 24% over 10 years. So the only way we're going to climb out of this is with something like a fair tax.
Yeah,
it's the only way. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say there are a lot of scary things that they're proposing to get us out of this. And
they're stupid.
Yeah, well, yeah.
They are. I agree with you. I agree.
Yeah. It's all stupid.
There are a lot of people who say, and we had this, it was an argument, but there was a man, we were standing in line one day and there was a man in front of us and I was handing out fair tax information. And he said, we would be okay if corporations just paid their fair share, if corporations just paid their taxes. And I said, well, you can raise the corporate rate, but what you're going to do is just make whatever their product is more expensive. And I said, you're wearing Levi jeans. I said, if Levi, Levi's are pretty expensive. And if you raise their corporate rate, then you're going to be paying more for your jeans. He said, I don't care. I don't care as long as they have to pay more in corporate taxes. But corporations don't pay taxes. They collect taxes.
They accumulate taxes.
They accumulate them, yes. And so there's just a lot of misinformation about taxes, but that's intentional because, it's very easy to say, shut up and pay your taxes. There's nothing,
keep the unwashed masses ignorant and you can do anything you want to.
Yeah. That's what it all boils down to. Yeah.
I read a H.L. Mencken quote, the scariest thing for a government is a citizen who's self-aware, who will ask questions. And that's
the reason why they don't like you asking questions.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. There's a movie out, and I'm probably the only patriot. Phil and I are the only patriots in the United States who haven't watched this movie. 2,000 Mules.
What?
We haven't watched it yet. We've got to.
Yeah, you have to, because that's revealing. And Greg Phillips and Catherine Engelbrecht ended up in jail over that movie in Houston, but they fought their way out because it was illegal having them in jail. but they're bringing realism to the election system, and they're also showing where all the illegal stuff's going on, and they're being beat down because of that. There's a large number of people that are against things like the fair tax and true in the vote and all that, because they would lose their power, and they love their power rather than you having you being able to do live your life the way you think it ought to be led and free of all of their shenanigans.
Yeah. Again, like I said, it would be the largest transfer of power from the federal government to the American people, and the federal government's not going to let go of that power easily.
No.
And
that's a good point. Another way you increase that freedom is when you go to the fair tax, there are no exemptions in that tax. Mm-hmm. So what will lobbyists be doing in the Congress?
Well, there'll always be lobbyists.
They'll be lobbyists, but they won't be lobbying taxes unless they're trying to get them increased or decreased. And everybody, like we said, everybody's going to know if somebody's trying to increase that tax, because it's going to affect it's going to affect Beer Gut Joe as all the way up to mighty airplane flying, folks around the world. It's going to affect them all. So,
we were living in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Charlotte, North Carolina is a transit area. And I didn't know this until we moved there, but actually Charlotte, North Carolina is the banking capital of the U.S. It's where most banks are headquartered. So people were constantly moving in and out. So we were living there during a bad economy. And so people were not buying, they were being transferred in, and they would prefer renting instead of buying a place. And they had to make the decision based on that, based on a bad economy. And people are still having to do that. Even in a good economy, it's like, wow, if I sell my house, I'm going to make a profit.
Right.
And it's almost like it's a dirty word to make a profit because of the current tax, the way everything is set up right now.
Under the fair tax, that profit is yours until you spend that money.
Right.
You're not going to be hit up with, oh, you got to buy another house within a year or two, or you're going to get taxed up the wazoo. You get to use that money and spend it to your delight, and you pay taxes when you spend the money. You don't have to worry about it otherwise.
It's called freedom.
Freedom.
I kind of like that word, freedom.
I do.
But I'm going to tell you, the older I get, the more I realize 2 years is not long enough.
No.
To decide what you want to do with your money. I mean, you made a profit, and I've got to hurry up and stash it somewhere and hope I've stashed it in the right place.
That's especially if you worked real hard and you really made a lot of good investment in that property, and you made it a lot better than what it was, and it'll draw a higher price. Mm-hmm. Well, then you're having your dilemma, like you're saying, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be hit hard with income taxes on this.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's almost a curse. We got a lot of farmland around here that's that people have lost, because maybe the parents, the grandparents, whoever passed away, and nobody wanted to be responsible for the tax part of it. So the kids would just say, well, let's just sell it and divide what's left over from the taxes. People have been forced to make those decisions, and that's just not right.
No, it isn't.
Well, it's not right for them, but it's also not right for us, because a lot of that land is bought up by agribusiness, big agribusiness.
And of late, Chinese.
Yeah, actually, that's true too. But the thing about it is, if you take the land away from the family, you're going to pay more, because they own chunks of the, is it Bill Gates that owns most of the farmland in the country?
Yeah.
I have to question why.
Me too.
Well, yeah, exactly. And he wants us to eat bugs. That's the thing. That's kind of puzzling if you consider he's got farmland that he can grow food on, and instead of growing food, he wants to have you eat bugs. So, it's
a lot of craziness going on right now.
Yeah.
There is. And
we
it's down the way out.
Yeah, we believe that getting this fair tax into place would bring people alive again. With all the freedom that they have, that they start looking at stuff like that and questioning what's going on.
Well, there's a lot that has to be done. We have to do something about teaching economics in schools.
Yes.
Yeah, young people have no concept of money. They don't understand. And I mean, how many kids are living at home with their parents now? Adults are living at home with their parents because they can't be self-sufficient. So, the fair tax is a huge thing. It's a revenue collection that I think, again, brings freedom to the American people. But there's a lot more that needs to be done.
Well, people need to know, like buying a house. I mean, if you buy, okay, this is what my son and daughter-in-law did. Okay, they used their brains. So what happened is they bought this townhouse on Cluster Raleigh, North Carolina. And so I sent Brad and Larissa this calculator. It's like a mortgage calculator. And so and Phil and I said, if you only paid like $50 extra per month, just $50
Right.
per month, you're going to save all this money in taxes. This calculator is awesome. Banks don't want you to know this.
No,
okay. They don't want you to know this. This is like mind-boggling. They set a goal. They did a 30-year mortgage. And Phil and I were a little bit, we didn't tell them at the time, but we were kind of like, I wish they didn't do a 30-year. But anyway, they did a 30-year mortgage. They wound up doing the right thing because they were putting like an entire check. They were more than doubling their house payment.
Right.
And so the goal was to have it paid off before their 10th wedding anniversary. And they did.
Yeah.
Then we did a calculation on how much money they saved just on interest. It was over $100,000.
Yeah. Well, see, that's that's kind of a reason to take the 30-year loan, because then you have the capability of a lower house payment while you're struggling, and then when you get to the point where you can knock it off, you knock it off and get rid of it.
Like quick.
As long as you got a fixed rate.
Yeah, you got a fixed rate. The APR, throw that out the door.
Yeah.
And these are things that are just not taught in school.
They are.
You just have to figure some of these things out on your own. But the mortgage calculator, and by the way, folks, you can go anywhere. Just type in mortgage calculator and just type it. Now you've got to know what your interest rate is. You got to know what your down payment was and what the original purchase price was. So your home, I'm assuming you can do it with a car as well. Yeah. And so, I mean, you can. So you need to know those things. And then at the bottom of the calculator, it gives you, and any of them work. They're all the same. So you can put, let's say your house payments, let's make it easy, $1,000 a month. And you put in an extra $200 per month. You'll be able to see on this calculator how much money, if you just stick with it, that Brad and Larissa did. Stick with it and just see how much money you are actually saving. So we shouldn't have to keep, this is our money. And we're having to find, legal ways to keep our money. And this is unreal.
Yeah.
Not only that, if you look at a 30-year mortgage, how much the interest is and how much you paid for your house, and then how much you would pay if you pay the minimum amount every month, find out exactly how much you would pay for your house, and it's probably more than double.
It's more than double.
Exactly. So, if you buy a $100,000 house, you're probably paying over $200,000 for it.
They paid like $100,000, $99,000 or something like that for this townhouse. Yeah. And so, and it was in a bad economy, so they bought it at the right time, and now it's valued, it's over tripled in value now. And so they're sitting pretty good.
Yeah, as a result of the fair tax, they calculated that whatever the rate, the going interest rate at the time be, it'll drop 0.5% at least, just overnight, because
that was a question. What would that do to the interest rates?
It would drop it because it gets rid of a whole bunch of things that are boiled up into the interest rate to make it higher. Everything goes down typically when you throw in the fair tax.
Well, the interest rates are about to go hiking, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
We're about to be in a mess of trouble.
Yeah. Well, we are in a mess of trouble right now, and getting out of it is going to be really hard. But my grandparents went through it in the Great Depression, and it can be done, but it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah, you're going to have to eat mush for a while. That's what I heard. You know what mush is?
Was it
corn? I heard my grandparents talking about eating mush, and what mush was, they didn't even throw out the scraps. At the end of the week, all of the scraps were kept together, and they made one dish out of all the scraps. That's how they survived.
It always surprises me though that there are so many ways that you can save money. Even if you don't have to, because if you make things yourself, you can make your own bread. It doesn't cost anything. I mean, it really doesn't cost anything to do it. You can get your wheat and grind the mill that we have that grinds the flour, makes the flour. I think it costs $200, and you take that over a lifetime. That's nothing. And when I make pancakes, I'll just get some wheat and grind it and make our pancakes, and it doesn't cost very much. You don't have to buy a mix. There's nothing in pancakes but flour and water and baking powder.
You know what my grandmother used to say? My grandmother thought it was a total sin to use a cake mix. I mean, you were sinning against God if you used a cake mix. Yeah. And so one time I said, why are you so fanatical about that? You know, about people using cake mixes. She said, they sell you on convenience. She said, you still got to add an egg. You still got to, or 2 eggs, and you still have to put water in there. What's the difference? She said, you're saving so much more money. Get your own flour and sugar, for goodness sakes. That's all a cake mix is flour and sugar. She was right. Mm-hmm. We laughed and made fun of her back in the day, but she was absolutely right. I saw this. This is in, it was in the magazine. It's a AARP. I don't believe in what they stand for, but they did come up with this pretty good article, and it's a new way to lower your grocery cost. And so they're talking about these salvage grocery stores. And you really, if you can find one, there's one in Fife, Alabama. You have to look at the expiration dates, that kind of thing. And it could be just bent cans. And you're paying a fraction of what you would be paying in some of these grocery stores.
Mm-hmm. Because they're getting that at a fraction of the normal cost.
Yeah, we went to Dollar Tree. It's not someplace I, frequented, but we went in there one time, and they have canned goods that are just like you have at the grocery store. The expiration dates are about the same, and now wrong with it. Yeah, but I don't know what the advantage is. Now, I do like our grocery store, I have to say. Mm-hmm. I don't want to put our grocery store out of business, but it's just that there are so many things that you can do yourself. And they used to teach home economics in school, and it doesn't have to just be for girls. It could be for girls and boys. Boys can cook too.
Some of them can.
Not this.
Some of them.
Yeah,
my son and my husband can.
I boil water.
Yeah,
you do really good.
He fixes the tea in the morning.
Oh, so, good for you. Yeah. Yay. So you won't starve to death.
No. Yeah. Plenty of fluids. Yeah. But, again, there's no reason why you have to. And as far as canned goods go and expiration dates, I probably shouldn't say this, but that, as long as it's good in the can, we've eaten canned goods.
You can go beyond that. You really can. Just smell the food. Really, I have had canned stuff, and I try to treat my house like it's a business. So what I try to do is put the things that are about to expire at the front of the shelf. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I forget. So I found some baked beans or something one time, and I thought, man, this is past the expiration date. So I opened it up, and it smelled good. It didn't. If it has a funky smell or it just, it's water-fied or whatever, don't eat it.
No.
Well, the other thing is the can will bulge if it's bad.
Yeah, you can tell if food is bad. A canned good, that's really, they want to get it out of the store as fast as they can.
Then they want you to come back and buy some more.
Yeah, when you talk about baked beans, we had baked beans we had some barbecue that we had frozen, and we had that for dinner last night. And the baked beans, I think they expired in 2017. They were fine. We're alive.
There you go. It's just if it has a funky smell to it, just don't eat it. Throw it out. That's all you have to do.
Dented cans need to be used first because they can be a problem. But
Did you have some more questions that?
Yeah, there was one that was, or actually 4, about the turnaround time. So if this does happen, and we do have fair tax, how long would it be before we're actually free of all of this and we're not slaves? And the word slave came up several times. We're slaves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we are indentured slaves to the income tax.
Right.
The way it would work out is, depending on when they got the bill signed off, the 1st of December, would be the last day. December 31st would be the last day of the income tax, and then January the 1st of the next year will be the first day of the fair tax. All product line in line and everything, and already taxed. All the income tax and everything rolled up into it would have a 2-year grandfather on it, so that you wouldn't be charged the fair tax and the tax that's already embedded in that the cost of that stuff. So they got 2 years to get through with that, and then you start collecting the fair tax on January the 1st after that December 31st.
And then you would pay your income tax for the year,
last year,
for the ending year.
And the IRS would have 3 years to reconcile that last year of income tax, and then they are defunded, and they have to burn all of the income tax records, and they're no longer in operation.
Yay!
And the only thing that you have to keep the Social Security and Medicare, because people will still be in the system, so you got to know who qualifies. So that part of it would be kept, but then from then on, the only thing reported on a person would be they made enough money this year to be qualified to get Social Security and Medicare. So
Right, and I want to go to that bonfire.
yeah, me too.
I-
That's going
Me
to
too.
be.
We'll all rope up and go.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
So
let's do.
you got the day of is going to be January the 1st after the last income tax year. Then 3 years later, you get rid of the IRS and all the income tax documentation, and then you got after that 3 years, you got 4 more years to repeal the income tax, or you go back to whatever kind of tax you can come up with, since the fair tax will phase out at that point in time if you haven't repealed the 16th Amendment.
Right. So they'd have to start from scratch on that, because the
You think of anybody would want to go back to the income tax after it's been killed?
No,
I can't think of anybody after we've
I
been
don't
on.
want to do it, and I've never had the other way. I mean, no. Okay, so real quick, we've got a little bit over 2 minutes left in this segment. So someone did ask about a business. How long would it take a business to transition going
They do
away
it immediately. They do it immediately.
Yeah, they would have a credit for everything they have in inventory that's been taxed.
Right.
And then
once they sell that, then they're done with the income tax.
Wow.
And the only people collecting this tax will be retailers. And so you're going from about 168 million income tax filers now, and I just read that the IRS is saying that, to roughly 25 million retailers. So you can see how small the bottlenecks becomes to enforce the fair tax. And so that gets rid of all of that gets rid of about 80 to 90% of the evasion. It gets rid of that $450 billion worth of collecting the tax, the $450 billion to collect it. So you're going to be saving all kinds of money on garbage, no value added stuff that's tacked on to the income tax.
Mm-hmm.
And all you're going to be doing is giving us back our freedom.
Now, we've never been this close in history before, have we? This is big, right?
That's correct.
This is big, and we need everyone who is for the fair tax to contact their politicians, because this is something that we have a chance.
This is huge.
It is huge.
It's not hard. Get on the telephone, find out what their local number is for your representatives and senators, or that same token, your local number for your state representatives and everything. Call them all and tell them to get on the bandwagon.
Right, and we have Contact My Politician is a website. It's not ours. It's a website that actually you can go on, put your address in, and it will tell you who all of your representatives are from Joe Biden on down.
That would be .com.
.com.
Okay. Contact your politician.
Contact my politician.com. And if you can't remember that, we have Understanding the Alabama Economic Freedom Act on our website, alfairtax.org. On the back page of that, it has that website. So it's written down.
You got no excuses. You got no excuses.
No excuses. Guys,
Right.
thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been awesome.
Thanks,
Thanks,
you very
Donna.
much.
We
See
appreciate
you
it.
next time.
We'll see you guys later. And thank you for watching. You're awesome. I'll tell you, I know you could be doing anything else, but you're watching us right now. This has been informative. Go ahead and come up with some more questions, because we're going to have these guys on a lot more. So y'all take care. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
See you later.